The lecture hall at Westfield University was a cavern of tiered seats and polished wood, its high ceilings echoing with the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Morning sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting long shadows across the rows of desks where students shuffled in, their backpacks thumping against chairs. It was the first week of the fall semester, and the air buzzed with the nervous energy of new beginnings, notebooks open, laptops glowing, whispers about syllabi and grades. At the front of the room, a projector hummed, displaying a syllabus for Advanced Data Structures, a course known for its rigor, and the professor who taught it, Dr. Edward Thornton. Thornton was a towering figure in the computer science department, his reputation as brilliant as it was intimidating, his lectures a gauntlet that separated the serious from the unprepared. Near the back of the hall, Maya Ellison slipped into a seat, her sneakers silent on the carpeted floor. She was 19, a sophomore with a quiet intensity, her dark skin contrasting with the bright red hoodie she wore, her tightly coiled hair pulled into a neat bun. Her backpack, worn but organized, held a laptop covered in stickers and a notebook filled with meticulous notes. Maya's eyes, sharp and observant, scanned the room, noting the clusters of students, some chatting, others buried in their phones. She'd chosen Westfield for its tech program, one of the best in California, but she knew the game here. She'd felt it in high school, in coding camps, in every space where she was one of the few black faces, the glances, the assumptions, the subtle shift when she spoke up. She was used to proving herself, but it didn't make it easier. Maya opened her laptop, pulling up the course notes she'd prepped over the summer. Data structures weren't new to her. She'd taught herself Python in middle school, built apps by 16, and won a regional hackathon last spring. But Thornton's class was a hurdle, a gateway to the upper-level courses she needed for her degree. She'd heard the stories, his razor-sharp critiques, his preference for standout students, his impatience with anyone who didn't fit his mold. She'd seen him earlier, striding into the hall, his gray suit impeccable, his white hair combed back, his voice clipped as he greeted a few front-row students, mostly white, mostly male. To them, he was a mentor. To others, he was a gatekeeper. As the clock ticked toward 9, Thornton stepped to the podium, his presence silencing the room. He adjusted his glasses, his eyes sweeping over the 60 students, lingering briefly on Maya before moving on. "Welcome to Advanced Data Structures," he said, his voice booming, authoritative. "If you're here, you think you're ready for the real work. Most of you aren't." A few students chuckled nervously, but Maya's jaw tightened. She knew that tone, the one that said he'd already decided who belonged. Thornton clicked the projector, the syllabus glowing on the screen. "Let's see who's prepared," he said, his smile thin. "We'll start with a diagnostic. Open your laptops." Maya's fingers moved to her keyboard, her heart steady but her mind sharp. She was ready for this, but something in Thornton's glance, that fleeting dismissal, told her this wasn't just about code. It was about survival, and she was no stranger to that fight. The lecture hall at Westfield University hummed with the soft clatter of keyboards and the occasional cough as 60 students bent over their laptops, the diagnostic test glowing on their screens. The air was thick with concentration, the kind that comes with knowing every keystroke could make or break your semester. At the front, Dr. Edward Thornton paced slowly, his polished shoes clicking against the wooden floor, his gray suit catching the morning light streaming through the tall windows. His presence was a weight, his eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses, scanning the room like a hawk circling prey. The projector cast a faint blue glow, the words, "Advanced Data Structures, Diagnostic," bold on the screen, a challenge that had already silenced the earlier chatter. In the back row, Maya Ellison's fingers danced across her laptop, her dark eyes locked on the code editor, her red hoodie a splash of color in the sea of muted tones. She was deep in the problem, a complex sorting algorithm with a trick constraint, but her mind was split, half on the code, half on Thornton's looming figure, his earlier glance still burning in her memory. The test was brutal, designed to weed out the unprepared, and Maya felt the pressure, not because she doubted her skills, but because she knew the stakes were higher for her. She'd aced tougher challenges, hackathons, open-source projects, but Thornton's reputation was a shadow over the room. She'd overheard students in the hall before class, whispering about his favorites, the ones who got extra office hours, the ones he'd recommend for internships. They didn't look like her. She pushed the thought aside, her code compiling cleanly, her solution elegant but untested. She hit run, watching the terminal spit out results, and breathed a quiet sigh when it passed. But the victory was short-lived. Thornton stopped pacing, his voice cutting through the room like a whip. "Time's up. Save your work and close your laptops." The students complied, a chorus of clicks and zips as they packed up, their faces a mix of relief and dread. Maya saved her file, her heart steady but her senses sharp, catching Thornton's gaze as he moved toward the front rows. He called out a few names, Ethan, Connor, Sarah, students who'd sat up front, their hands shooting up eagerly. "Let's hear your approaches," he said, his tone almost warm, a teacher encouraging his stars. Their answers were solid but predictable, and Thornton nodded, offering praise that felt rehearsed. "Good start," he said to Ethan, a lanky junior with glasses. "You're thinking like an engineer." Maya's jaw tightened. She knew her solution was better, faster, cleaner, but Thornton's eyes never strayed to the back. She raised her hand, her movement deliberate, her voice clear when he finally glanced her way. "I'd like to share mine, Professor," she said, her tone polite but firm, cutting through the room's murmur. Thornton's lips twitched, a faint smirk that didn't reach his eyes. He adjusted his glasses, leaning against the podium. "Miss," he prompted, though her name was on the roster he'd checked earlier. "Ellison," Maya said, her voice steady, meeting his gaze. "Maya Ellison." He nodded, a dismissive tilt of his head. "All right, Miss Ellison. Enlighten us. But keep it brief, I'm sure you've got other priorities." A few students snickered, the front row favorites exchanging glances, and Maya felt the room shift, the weight of their assumptions pressing down. She stood, her hoodie suddenly feeling like armor, and walked to the front, plugging her laptop into the projector. Her solution filled the screen, a sleek algorithm with comments so clear it could have been a textbook example. She began explaining, her voice confident, breaking down the logic, time complexity, edge cases, optimization. The room went quiet, the snickers fading as students leaned forward, some nodding, others scribbling notes. But Thornton's smirk didn't waver. He interrupted midway, his tone patronizing. "That's creative, Miss Ellison, but impractical. You've missed the point of scalability. Perhaps you'd benefit from the remedial section." He gestured for her to sit, already turning to another student, dismissing her without a second glance. Maya froze, her hands gripping the podium, the sting of his words sharper than she'd expected. She knew her solution was scalable, she'd tested it, optimized it, but Thornton hadn't even looked at the code. The front row students smirked again, and a girl in the middle row, Aisha, shot Maya a sympathetic look, her phone discreetly raised, recording the exchange. Maya's heart pounded, not from fear, but from a fire kindling inside. She'd faced this before, teachers who saw her as less, peers who doubted her, but this was different. This was her future, her degree, her proof she belonged. "Professor," she said, her voice cutting through his next question, loud enough to make heads turn. With respect, you're wrong. My solution is scalable. I can prove it. The room went silent, the air crackling with tension. Thornton turned slowly, his smirk gone, his eyes narrowing, a predator sizing up a challenge he hadn't expected. Prove it, he said, his voice low, almost amused. You're treading on thin ice, Miss Ellison. But go ahead. Let's see how far this goes. Maya nodded, her fingers flying across her laptop, pulling up a test suite she'd written for the hackathon last spring. She ran it, the results flashing on the screen, her algorithm outperforming the standard solution by 30%. Gasps rippled through the room, and Aisha's phone stayed steady, capturing every second. Thornton's face tightened, but he waved a hand, dismissive. A fluke, he said. Real-world systems don't work like that. Sit down before you embarrass yourself further. The words hit like a slap, and Maya felt the room's eyes on her, some mocking, some curious, Aisha's now burning with quiet support. She could sit down, let Thornton win, but that wasn't who she was. She'd built apps from scratch, coded through nights when no one believed in her, carried the weight of every, "you don't belong," and kept going. I'm not done, she said, her voice steady, a spark in her eyes that made Thornton pause. Let's try a real-world problem. Pick one. I'll solve it right here. The challenge hung in the air, a gauntlet thrown, and the room erupted in whispers, phones raised higher, Aisha's video now joined by others. Thornton's face reddened, his authority slipping, but he couldn't back down, not in front of his class, not with the stakes this high. Fine, he said, his voice a growl. You want to play? Let's play. He clicked the projector, pulling up a new problem, a graph traversal with constraints so complex it was meant for grad students. Solve this, he said, his smirk returning. Or get out of my class. Maya met his gaze, her heart racing but her resolve ironclad. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for every student who'd been dismissed, every voice silenced by men like Thornton. And she was ready to turn the tables. The lecture hall at Westfield University was a pressure cooker, the air thick with the weight of 60 pairs of eyes fixed on Maya Ellison. She stood at the podium, her red hoodie a beacon under the fluorescent lights, her fingers poised over her laptop as the projector screen glowed with Dr. Edward Thornton's challenge, a graph traversal problem so intricate it seemed designed to break her. Thornton leaned against the front desk, his gray suit crisp, his arms crossed, that thin smirk playing at his lips like he'd already won. The room buzzed with whispers, phones raised high, their tiny red lights blinking as students recorded the showdown. Aisha, the girl in the middle row, kept her camera steady, her dark eyes flashing with quiet support, while others, Ethan and Connor from the front, Thornton's favorites, exchanged smirks, their laptops forgotten. The hum of the air conditioning was drowned out by the pulse of anticipation, the kind that comes when a long simmering tension is about to erupt. Maya's heart pounded, but her breath was steady, her mind a steel trap honed by years of coding through doubt, of proving herself in rooms where she was never expected to shine. Thornton's voice cut through the murmurs, sharp and deliberate. You've got 10 minutes, Miss Ellison, he said, glancing at his watch, his tone dripping with condescension. If you can't solve it, you're out. No second chances. He stepped back, gesturing to the screen, his smirk widening as if he'd already written her off. The problem was a beast, a weighted graph with dynamic constraints, requiring not just a solution but an optimized one, the kind that tripped up even grad students. The front row favorites snickered, Ethan muttering, "She's done," loud enough for the room to hear. But Maya didn't flinch. She'd faced worse, midnight debugging sessions, hackathons where her team was underestimated, teachers who'd marked her down for overreaching. This was just another hurdle, and she was ready to leap. She opened her code editor, her fingers flying across the keys, the clatter of her typing a rhythm that silenced the room. She started with a Dijkstra's algorithm base, but the constraints demanded more, a hybrid with a asterisk heuristics, maybe, to handle the dynamic weights. Her screen filled with clean, commented code, each line a testament to her skill, her focus unbreakable despite the weight of Thornton's stare. Aisha leaned forward, her phone capturing every keystroke, while a few students in the back began to nod, their skepticism giving way to curiosity. One, a quiet guy named Javier, pulled out his own laptop, running Maya's code alongside hers, his eyes widening as he saw her logic unfold. 5 minutes in, Thornton cleared his throat, his voice laced with mock concern. "Struggling, Miss Ellison. I can recommend a few introductory texts if you need them." The front row laughed, but Maya didn't look up. She hit run on a test case, the terminal flashing green, passed. The room murmured, and Thornton's smirk faltered, his eyes narrowing as he stepped closer to the screen. "Luck," he said, his voice tighter now. "Let's see it handle the full dataset." He clicked the projector, uploading a massive graph with thousands of nodes, a monster meant to crush her runtime. Maya didn't blink. She tweaked her algorithm, adding a pruning step to optimize for scale, her fingers a blur. The room was alive now, students whispering, phones raised higher, Aisha's video joined by half a dozen others. Javier nudged his neighbor, a girl named Priya, pointing at his screen. "She's killing it," he whispered, and Priya nodded, her own phone out now, recording. The front row favorites shifted uncomfortably, Ethan's smirk gone, Connor's eyes darting to Thornton, who stood rigid, his hands clenched at his sides. Maya's code compiled, and she ran it, the terminal churning through the dataset. Seconds ticked by, the room holding its breath, and then, green. Passed. Faster than the reference solution by 20%. Gasps rippled through the class, and Aisha let out a quiet, yes, her phone steady. Javier clapped, earning a glare from Thornton, but others joined in, a scattering of applause that grew louder, defiant. Maya stepped back, her breath steady, her eyes meeting Thornton's, unyielding. "It works," she said, her voice clear, cutting through the noise. "Anything else you want me to prove?" Thornton's face was a storm, his jaw tight, his eyes burning with a mix of fury and disbelief. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, Aisha stood, her voice bold. "Professor, I think Maya deserves to explain her solution to the class. She's earned it." The room erupted in murmurs, some supportive, others shocked, phones capturing every second. Priya nodded, adding, "Yeah, let her teach it. I want to understand." Javier chimed in, "Same here," and the applause grew, a wave of defiance that rocked Thornton's authority. He raised a hand, silencing the room, his voice low, dangerous. "You think you can run my class, miss?" He glanced at Aisha, his eyes narrowing. "Con," Aisha said, unflinching. "And it's not about running your class. It's about fairness. Maya's solution is better than anything I've seen in this course. Let her speak." Thornton's face reddened, his control slipping as the room's energy turned against him. He turned to Maya, his voice a growl. "You want to play teacher? Fine. Explain your solution. But if you stumble, you're out, no credits, no appeal." He stepped back, his smirk returning, a last-ditch effort to reclaim the stage. But Maya was ready. She nodded, turning to the class, her posture commanding, her hoodie no longer just clothing but a mantle of strength. She began, her voice steady, breaking down the algorithm step by step, graph theory, heuristics, optimization. The class leaned in, some taking notes, others nodding, even Ethan and Connor reluctantly following along. Aisha's video kept rolling, now live streaming to the university's coding club group chat, where dozens of students watched, comments flooding in, "She's a genius. Thornton's done." Maya's explanation was clear, her confidence unshakable, and when she finished, the room burst into applause, louder than before, a roar of respect that shook the walls. Thornton stood frozen, his smirk gone, his hands trembling. He opened his mouth, but a new voice cut through, a woman's, authoritative, from the back of the room. "Dr. Thornton, a word." Everyone turned to see Dr. Linda Hayes, the department chair, standing in the doorway, her tablet in hand, her dark eyes fixed on Thornton. She'd been watching Aisha's stream, alerted by the club's chat, and her presence was a thunderclap. The room went silent, phones still raised, and Maya stood tall, her heart racing but her resolve ironclad. Something big was coming, and Thornton was about to face the consequences of his mistake. Have you ever seen someone stand up to unfair treatment like Maya just did? Drop your story in the comments, I want to hear it. The lecture hall at Westfield University was a crucible, the air charged with the weight of Maya Ellison's triumph and Dr. Edward Thornton's unraveling. The projector screen still glowed with Maya's algorithm, its elegant code a silent rebuke to Thornton's dismissal. 60 students sat riveted, their phones raised, capturing the moment as applause faded into a tense hush. Dr. Linda Hayes, the department chair, stood in the doorway, her tailored blazer sharp against the morning light, her tablet clutched in one hand, her dark eyes locked on Thornton. Her presence was a seismic shift, her voice, "Dr. Thornton," a word, a gavel strike that silenced the room. Aisha's phone, still live streaming to the coding club's group chat, caught every second, the comments section exploding with emojis and shocked reactions. Thornton's face was a mask of barely contained fury, his hands clenched, his gray suit suddenly seeming too tight, as if his authority was shrinking by the second. Maya stood at the podium, her red hoodie a symbol of defiance, her breath steady but her heart racing, sensing the tide turning in her favor. Thornton straightened, forcing a thin smile, his voice strained but professional. "Dr. Hayes, this is a classroom matter," he said, gesturing to Maya, his tone dismissive. Miss Ellison was disrupting the lesson with an impractical solution. "I'm handling it." He stepped toward the podium, as if to reclaim control, but Hayes raised a hand, her expression unyielding, stopping him cold. "Handling it?" Hayes said, her voice low, cutting through the room like a blade. "I've been watching, Edward. The stream's been live for 10 minutes, and I've seen enough." She held up her tablet, the coding club's chat visible, comments scrolling fast, #Justice for Maya, #Thornton exposed. The students gasped, Aisha's eyes widening, her phone steady despite her shaking hands. Ethan and Connor, Thornton's front row favorites, shifted uncomfortably, their smirks long gone. Javier and Priya exchanged glances, their applause from moments ago now a quiet rebellion. Thornton's face drained of color, his hands trembling as he registered the scope of his exposure. Hayes stepped into the room, her heels clicking on the wooden floor, her gaze sweeping over the students before settling on Maya. "Miss Ellison," she said, her tone warm but authoritative, "your solution is exceptional. I'd like you to finish teaching it to the class." The room erupted in murmurs, some shocked, others cheering, phones capturing the moment. Aisha let out a quiet, yes, her stream now joined by dozens more, the video spreading beyond the club to campus-wide groups. Thornton's jaw dropped, his voice rising in protest. "This is my class," he snapped, stepping toward Hayes, his face red. "You can't just let a student, a sophomore, take over. She's not qualified." His words were desperate, his control slipping like sand through his fingers. Maya's eyes narrowed, her voice clear, cutting through his outburst. "Not qualified," she said, stepping forward, her hoodie no longer just clothing but a mantle of power. "I just solved your grad-level problem in under 10 minutes. I've built apps, won hackathons, and taught myself code when no one else would. I'm more than qualified." She turned to the class, her gaze steady, addressing them directly. "And I'm not here to disrupt. I'm here to learn, and to make sure we all get a fair shot." The room roared with applause, louder than before, a wave of support that shook Thornton's foundation. Aisha's stream hit 1,000 views, comments flooding in, "She's a queen. Fire Thornton." Hayes nodded, a faint smile breaking through her stern demeanor, and gestured for Maya to continue. "Go ahead, Miss Ellison," she said. "Show them how it's done." Thornton's face twisted, his voice a growl. "This is insubordination. You'll regret this, Linda." He lunged for his laptop, as if to shut down the projector, but Javier stood, blocking his path, his voice calm but firm. "Let her finish, Professor." Priya joined him, her phone raised, and others followed, a wall of students standing with Maya. Thornton froze, outnumbered, his authority shattered under the weight of their defiance. Maya turned back to the screen, her fingers steady as she walked the class through her solution, her voice confident, breaking down complex concepts with clarity. Students leaned forward, some typing notes, others asking questions she answered with ease. Aisha's stream kept rolling, now shared across social media, hashtags like #MayaTeaches and #NoRoomForRacism trending on campus. Thornton stood at the room's edge, his hands shaking, his empire crumbling as Maya claimed the stage he'd denied her. Hayes watched, her tablet buzzing with notifications, emails from faculty, messages from the dean, all alerted to the stream. She stepped toward Thornton, her voice low but final. "You're done here, Edward. Step outside." He opened his mouth to protest, but her glare silenced him, and he followed her out, his head bowed, the door closing with a thud that echoed like a verdict. Maya finished her explanation, the class erupting in applause, some standing, others shouting her name. She stepped back, her heart full, her eyes meeting Aisha's, Javier's, Priya's, a silent thank you for their support. The stream hit 10,000 views, the video now viral, a beacon of resistance against injustice. Maya wasn't just a student anymore. She was a force, and Thornton had learned that the hard way. The lecture hall at Westfield University was electric, the air still vibrating with the roar of applause that followed Maya Ellison's triumph. The projector screen glowed with her algorithm, a testament to her brilliance, while the tiered seats buzzed with students whispering, their phones lowered but still buzzing with notifications. Aisha's live stream had exploded, now at 20,000 views, the hashtags #MayaTeaches and #NoRoomForRacism trending beyond campus to national platforms. Dr. Edward Thornton was gone, escorted out by Dr. Linda Hayes, the department chair, his gray suit a fading shadow as the door clicked shut behind him. Maya stood at the podium, her red hoodie a symbol of resilience, her dark eyes sweeping over the class, Javier, Priya, Aisha, even Ethan and Connor, now silent, their earlier smirks replaced by uneasy respect. The morning light streamed through the tall windows, casting a warm glow over the room, but the real light was Maya, a force who turned a moment of injustice into a movement. Hayes returned alone, her heels clicking as she approached the podium, her tablet silent now, her expression a mix of pride and resolve. "Class," she said, her voice clear, commanding attention, "Miss Ellison has shown us what excellence looks like. Let's give her another round." The students clapped again, some standing, their applause a wave of solidarity. Maya nodded, a small smile breaking through her focus, her heart full but grounded. She hadn't come here to take down Thornton, she'd come to learn, but sometimes the fight finds you, and she'd answered the call. Hayes continued, her tone firm. "Dr. Thornton's conduct is under review, effective immediately. This department stands for fairness, and will ensure it moving forward." She glanced at Maya, her voice softening. "Miss Ellison, I'd like you to guest lecture next week. Your solution deserves a full session." The class cheered, Aisha pumping a fist, her stream capturing the moment. Maya's eyes widened, but she nodded, her voice steady. "I'd be honored, Dr. Hayes." The fallout was swift. By noon, Thornton was suspended, his tenure in jeopardy as the university launched an investigation. Aisha's video went viral, racking up 1 million views by evening, shared by influencers and news outlets. The story, #MayaTeaches, sparked campus protests against bias, with students demanding inclusive teaching. Maya's inbox flooded with messages, peers thanking her, alumni sharing their own stories, a tech startup offering her an internship. She read one from a high school girl, "I want to code because of you." Maya replied, "You already can. Keep going." The university responded, announcing bias training and a scholarship fund in Maya's name. Maya guest lectured, her sessions packed, inspiring a coding club for underrepresented students. Thornton's reputation crumbled, his favorites system exposed, his career over. Maya kept coding, her degree closer, her voice louder. Her story wasn't just hers, it was every student's who'd been doubted, every voice fighting to be heard. This is what happens when we stand up, when we refuse to let prejudice define us. Maya didn't just teach a class, she taught us all. So, what about you? Have you faced bias or lifted someone up against it? Share your story with #NoRoomForRacism in the comments, I'm reading every one. If Maya's fight inspired you, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. Let's build a world where no one's underestimated, and every voice rises.